I think like starting your own business and creating your own like revenue stream is going to take a couple years. I don't care what anyone says on TikTok where they're like, "Oh, I bought like a ATM machine and now I'm a millionaire." Like, I'm not going to buy that. That if that is true, which I'm questioning, I that's like a unicorn. That's not a normal thing. It usually takes a couple years for you to really build your business. And so I would keep your current income while you're doing that, but think about where you put your energy.
Hi, friends. This is Read and Write with Natasha podcast. My name is Natasha Tynes, and I'm an author and a journalist. In this channel, I talk about the writing life, review books, and interview authors. Hope you enjoy the journey. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Read and Write with Natasha. I have with me today Kristen Van Nest, who's a writer, actor, comedian, and a storyteller that brings people together. She is author of the comedic travel memoir, Where to Nest. So, Kristen, so happy to have you with me here today. So, where are you now?
I'm based in Los Angeles, California, so I've lived here for about 6 years. And in life, excited for my book to come out, still figuring out life.
All right. So this book, it's coming out soon, like in a couple of weeks, right?
It comes out in April.
In April. Oh, wow. Okay. So we have a
Yeah,
couple of
you got
months.
one of the
So
first copies, so
it's gorgeous, by the way. I mean, whoever did the cover design is like really talented. I need the name later on. But anyways,
okay, yes,
uh,
she makes posters for movies and is based in LA, and she's amazing. So happy.
okay.
Her last name, Robin.
This explains it. So it was not ChatGPT. Okay, got it. All right. So, Kristen, can you tell us a bit about this book? What is it about? And I really want to hear about the ex-boyfriend who tried to kill you as well. That
Oh
was a
yes.
fascinating story. So let's start about the book. If you can tell us a bit about the book.
Yeah, so it's really a search about belonging. I feel like growing up, I grew up in a pretty like conservative town in Connecticut, and I was very much taught, like all the moms were stay-at-home moms. So that was
Oh
like
wow.
what everyone like that's like if you looked around, that's like the opportunity for women and like what a lot of my friends and goal was, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like it's one option. So growing up, and I also feel like growing up, we're like told all this advice like, you have to get a good job, you have to climb the corporate ladder, you have to be a good mother, you have to do all these things, you have to have kids. Like, there's all these things where like there's kind of like a general narrative. And I feel like, feminism, like there are things changing, but I feel like a lot of times the way that like we see the level of feminism that is like seen that we've reached, like when you actually look at like at least from my life experience, like the opportunities women have, like it's still not at equality, let's say. So I wanted to kind of talk about like, well, like what if, and my story is that I just like moved all over the world. So I was just like, like I'm just gonna do this. Like there was no like, well, this is what you're supposed to do. I'm like, I'm just gonna do it. And then like being there or like I moved to Luxembourg for a Fulbright scholarship, and then I lived in China for 3.5 years, working in the wine industry and for a beauty company. So for me, I was just kind of like, I'm gonna make my own path, and then like, is this okay with me? So a lot of the book is kind of like about understanding belonging and like understanding, can you do your own path, and like, is it okay? Like, are all the things that you've been told, right? Like, you're going to not be able to support yourself, you're not going to be able to have kids, you're not going to be able to have a family, like are all those things like thrown out the window if you like spend all of your 20s traveling the world, which is what I did. And so the book's message is very much about like, no, like you don't need to be like have everything figured out by 30. You don't need to have everything figured out by 40. Like there's no timeline that you have to meet. It's really whatever you want in your own life. And so those are choices that you make. And that's kind of really the message of the book, but set on like a global background where it's like me traveling and almost getting murdered by an ex, or a guy was hitting me up, honestly, but it's fine. While skiing in the Alps, these things happen.
And why did he try to murder you?
He took me on off piste, which is off. So we were skiing in Andermatt in Switzerland, and he decided to take me like off piste, which means off the trail. And so I'm like following him, like, oh, this is fine. And then we're at like a 45-degree, like just straight down. And if I ski too far off, because this isn't officially where people are supposed to be, I fall off a cliff. So I was like, cool. So I can't go back up because we're too far down. And going down, like, there's like, I could die. Like, if I just ski a little bit too far to the left, I could die. So I ended up just like barrel rolling like a sack of potatoes down the hill. And he was like, that's not how you're supposed to do that. And I was like, you.
Okay.
But he was like, you don't learn unless you fall. And I was like, another option is dying. So what the hell? So yeah.
I'm assuming you're not no longer together now.
Oh no, 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 no.
Okay. All right. So, okay, I want to go back to your upbringing.
Yeah.
And you said it was like a conservative lifestyle. And what was the reaction from your family and friends when you told them, you know what, I am leaving. I'm not gonna do, the standard lifestyle you want me to do.
Yeah.
Did they think you're crazy? What
I
was the feedback that you got?
I think luckily, I mean, on the kind of like, luckily my family is pretty like feminist and like very like want women to have careers and things like that. So
Mhm.
there wasn't really pushback on that side. There was a lot of support on that side. When it
Okay.
comes to like moving abroad and how many times I
Yeah.
switched careers and period and like, I mean, I have like big gaps in my resume where I just did
Yeah.
freelance or whatever. And there was definitely like that you're making terrible choices.
Yeah.
I think also my family, I started traveling when I was 16. My grandmother was basically like, I will pay half. If you can raise half the money, I will pay the other half for you to live in Paris with a host family and study French
Mm.
for a month. So like I was very much encouraged to travel abroad because she had lived abroad. And so when I was just kind of like, I'm doing these things, my family was like, Kristen just always does her own thing.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
just like this is her character. So they were just kind of like, we think this is a terrible idea, but like you seem to just figure things out. And so I think the book goes into like, that sounds really easy. And like figuring things out is not easy. But I wouldn't regret anything that I did. I definitely like
Yeah.
gave myself a difficult path, but I think it made me a better person and I had a fabulous time doing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you're currently in LA pursuing comedy, right? And
Yeah, so
you know,
I write in a comedic style, so my main focus right now is writing. But I'm
okay.
also an actor and yeah, so that's kind of like my specialty. I do improv and stuff like that.
Mm. Oh, fun.
Yeah.
So if somebody asks you, and I always ask this question, and if you're not comfortable responding, that's fine. How sustainable is this lifestyle? And the reason
Um,
is I'm asking because, that's, I think, the first question that comes to people's mind, and some might not feel comfortable asking it.
yeah.
But
I mean,
I'm a journalist, so I get to ask uncomfortable questions.
oh yeah. I mean, I make more money than I ever thought I could. So I
Oh,
run my own copywriting business and then so I work on that and then that's basically like part of my day and then the other part is doing comedy. So like I make more money than I ever thought I could. I could have a family if I wanted to. I don't feel emotionally and like financially I want to make sure I have way more than like I'm not ready to have kids basically, but I can afford to have a nice lifestyle and the choices that I made in my 20s are not things that have prevent like I'm making as much as if not more, than a lot of my peers who work full time for companies. So, you know,
Yeah.
I think we hear a lot about freelancers struggling because that's the truth. Like it is an extremely difficult to run your own business. Like I'm not downplaying that, but there is financial opportunity, there is financial freedom. There are things that you can get out of it that I don't think because I took my 20s exploring. Like it's not like I sat on my hands or didn't learn anything. I came up with like extremely unique skills through that experience that allow me to like sell those skills. Like I am an extremely skilled worker, even though I didn't do the path. And my views on that is like, if you're selling a service or product or what it is, like you have to have a unique selling proposition. It has to be like, you have to have unique skills that other people don't have. And I don't see unique skills. It is significantly harder to compete in a professional market if you have the exact same skills of everyone else. Like I talk to a lot of writers, for example, let's say in LA, I live in LA, right? A lot of my friends are screenwriters. They're all like, oh, if I want to become a screenwriter, I need to work as a personal assistant and then a writer's assistant and join the writer's room and like and a lot of them, this is just as an example, will be like, oh, well, since I've only lived in LA and worked in entertainment, I'll write about the entertainment industry. Well, guess how many scripts execs get about the entertainment industry? That is significantly more difficult of a ladder to climb when there are lots of other people because you better have the best. And it's really hard for
Mm,
you to stand out. Well, if you like, because of my career, I traveled all over the world. I did all these different things. Like, I have a unique set of like experiences that means that no one has the same unique experiences. Or if they do, like, I'd love to meet them. But
yeah.
I think as you make your own path, and there's a book too, as I mentioned, I have a second book coming out with my publisher that's more on the how to of this. But as you make your own path, you create your own unique selling proposition, which is your new unique way of positioning yourself in the market. And that makes you extremely skilled in that specific thing. And it's significantly better to be skilled in a very specific thing than to be skilled in a very generic thing because there's so many other people who will be skilled in the generic. So I think living your own path can really set you up for your own success that is like the success that you want. And like the internet has made it even easier to do that because it's easier to connect with people who need that very unique niche skill.
True. So is that the secret to your success? So if I like come and ask you, how did you make it? How like you're basically living a life on your own terms, financially and plus the lifestyle. So what is your secret? If you know, if you wanna come and tell me,
Yeah.
what should I do?
I think the secret is to like definitely understand like what are the things that you're very unique at. And so like for me, I started my career in branding. And so I moved to China. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a place to live. I was on a tourist visa. Don't tell the Chinese government that. So I moved there with like nothing set up. I knew three people. And so but luckily, like I knew I had this marketing background and I met the marketing director for the largest wine importer in China. And so she needed someone who like was like fluent in English and could liaison with foreign wine companies, English speaking wine companies. She needed someone who understood the wine industry, which I was like, I've never worked in wine, but my senior thesis in
Okay.
college was on the economics of wine and like what imports. So I knew like I mean it was my senior thesis, but that does not make me an expert in the wine industry in any means.
Okay.
But I was like, hey, I have this branding background. Excuse me. I have the background where I can liaison with your partners. I speak English. I understand their culture. You know, I understand wine at a degree higher than the average person, but not by much. And then I have a marketing background. And so because I had those three things, she was like, "Oh, like she's not, I'm not a senior person, but we can train her." And so I think being able to articulate like what are the unique things that you have And like, how does that position you? Because if I went to her and was like, oh, I do marketing and like, I mean, I've drank wine before. I like drink, I like having a good time. Like, that's not actually explaining enough to like articulate, hey, like, I could actually be good at this. So I think a lot of like career transitions and also selling a service or product online is understanding what is unique about your background. And if everyone zigged and you zagged, great. Like, why was zagging good? Like, what were the things you learned from zagging that you can then articulate to someone who might want to pay for your good or service?
Okay, cool. So, how did you move from that to publishing? And what was your publishing journey? And this is
Yeah,
your first book, right?
first book.
So,
Yeah.
and let me see. Yeah, and who's your publisher? Let me see here. The publisher is, I can see the name. Who's your publisher?
Rising Action Publishing, they're an indie
Okay.
press.
Indie press. Okay. So did you need an agent for that?
Yeah, so basically,
So how did that happen? Because it's really hard to get an agent. Oh yeah, it's
yeah,
distributed by Blackstone Publishing. Okay.
yeah,
So let's hear about it.
yeah.
What was
So before during COVID, I took a memoir writing class with Margot Lightman. Highly recommend her to anyone who's interested in writing memoir. And so I worked on the proposal. And so basically, nonfiction does not sell on a full manuscript, it sells on a proposal. And the proposal is kind of like a marketing pitch plus some sample chapters so they can hear your voice. And well, the whole thing should be written in your voice, but like so they can see kind of what you're writing, your writing style. So I made a proposal and then I cold emailed over 150 agents, just like cold emailed. And luckily, my amazing agent Mariah liked it. She liked my voice and was like, I want to represent you. So did a call and signed with her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So then this was in October 2020. And then, so she went out to agents, or she went out to publishers around November. And for a year and a half, no one wanted it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the rejections were like, you don't have enough of a social following, which is extremely important, more so in nonfiction than fiction. Another one was, no one's reading travel right now. It's COVID, which seemed really nearsighted to me because I mean, we didn't know if COVID wasn't going to last forever, but I have, I think it's safe to like assume that people are going to travel again. And book publishing takes 2 years. And again, this was in 2020, and now it's coming out in 2024, when this is supposed to be like one of the biggest travel years.
Exactly. Yeah.
So then I was like having a breakdown, being like, what is happening? Like, am I a writer? Like, no one wants this. Like, I really want to sell it. Like, this is like my memoir. This is so important to me. And luckily, my agent kept pitching it. Like, she just was hustling. So then she emailed me and was like, hey, Alex at Rising Action would be interested in purchasing your book. And I'm going to do a call with her. I'm like, okay, cool, great, great, okay. And then she was like, hey, did a call with her. She loves your voice. She actually wants to purchase both of your books because I had two proposals going out. And so luckily sold the books and then since then have been writing it. So yeah, I would
Wow.
say like getting an agent and everything. And I would say like when about 6 years ago, I wrote a nonfiction book proposal and that one never sold. Like same thing, emailed a bunch of agents, no one was interested. So, but when I look at the difference between the two books, like I made the second book so much better. And
Mm.
so, like, my advice to people is like, it really is about the quality of writing. And I hate, like, it's like stabbing myself giving this advice. It's about the quality of writing and about your reach, or your audience. And I hate saying that, but now that I'm going into like the marketing process, part of what sells it is me. And if I didn't have like a network and things that I've done, like the work I've done on social and like, we met on social, like if I didn't have relationships that I've been building, like I would be sitting on my hands right now and not actually
Mm.
helping sell my book. So I understand why they want that, but my advice would be don't want a platform for selling the book. Want a platform for yourself. Like want it so that you can sell your book, not so that your publisher can sell your book, so that you can sell your book. Because if you don't have anything to do like that I would go insane. Personally, I would be like, my
Yeah.
book's coming out, like what do I do? Like you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah.
So what are your marketing efforts? What are you doing to push the book, and what social platforms you feel have the highest ROI?
So I love Twitter, and I know you love Twitter. That's how we met. So I find like on Twitter, it's really easy to kind of like get to know people, and I think it's really important to like build genuine relationships. So I really focus on like, there are journalists and other and book critics, and like if I really love their work, then I reached out to them and was like, hey, can I send you a book? So I think that's like a great way is like connecting with people that like genuinely you enjoy the same things. So that's one way I did it. My social media, like I post kind of comedic stuff, and so I get followers through that. And so with them, they're really engaged. They already know my comedy, so when they buy the book, they're not like surprised by it. Like some people are like, you use too many vulgar words, or like I've been reading some of the NetGalley reviews, and they're like, um, there's like a chapter on finding out I had HPV, and someone was concerned because I didn't use the word vagina. I used like meat curtains, like
Okay.
hairy clam, like I use like synonyms through the whole thing, and like that's not everyone's flavor, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But I think like people who already follow me on social, like they know my comedy, and so they're probably going to enjoy it. So selling to them, they're like, oh, I already like this. I already think some of the things she says are funny. It's my sense of humor. So it's easier to kind of like sell that way. So I think like genuine relationships with people online, which you can do from anywhere. You don't need to be in LA
Yeah.
or New York or wherever. And then also like putting out content. And there are a lot of people who I don't think if you're an author, like there are other ways that you can sell too. Like at least with nonfiction, like I don't think you need to be a book talk person. I'm sure being a book talk person helps. But if you can make videos on other things in your life, like you can still, that's still a platform. They still know you and they enjoy your content.
Yeah.
So you could be an expert on something else. Maybe not building a tunnel under your house that's unpermitted, which is the current thing going viral. Like maybe avoid like doing illegal things and recording yourself doing it. But maybe she'll come out with a romance novel where two people meet in a tunnel. I don't know. I think like, make being like, oh, I want to be an author and therefore I can only make book related content. I don't think that's true.
Okay. Do you do video content?
Yeah, I do a lot of video because I'm a performer as well, which I know a lot of authors aren't as comfortable with video. So, like, I think that for that, like, choosing the platform that matches your skills.
What do you use TikTok, or where do you put your,
Video, I put mainly on TikTok and Instagram. I
and
posted
how
on
was the
Twitter, but
reaction?
like Twitter, it doesn't perform well because Twitter
It
isn't a video
doesn't. Yeah.
platform. So I'm like, here it is, but most people don't see it.
I noticed that videos just don't do well at all on I mean, for me, like TikTok still the best. TikTok and Instagram for short videos, and YouTube as well. But YouTube is different audience. What was the people's reaction on?
I've had a couple go viral that people have really liked.
Oh,
Yeah, and then there's others that don't perform well, but this is one of those things that again, like I want to stab myself saying it. But because it's just like, ugh. But really it's about posting consistently. And like
yeah,
not every video is going to be great, but if you have one that's good, like you'll get followers out of it. So it's really like I hate saying it, but same with writing, it's like putting in the work and
mm,
having like
yeah,
perfecting what you're writing. Same with like editing, right? Like getting feedback. Okay, what's the feedback from your social channel? Why did people like this video? What lines did they really like? What content did they really like? Same with like writing a book. What did the editor really like? What content did they not like? Like, should I keep that in or do I have to like kill my babies?
mm,
Excuse me, kill my darlings, not your babies.
my
Never kill
darlings, yeah,
babies.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I think that's something like it sucks because it's just, I hate giving advice. It's like do a lot of work. But it's do a lot of work and learn from the work you've already done so that the next work you do is smarter.
So you're working on another book now, and you already signed with the publisher.
Yes, so it's the same publisher. And so the second book is on, we're still like finalizing the title, but the second book is on basically turning your side hustle into your main hustle and learning how to sell things online, whether that's a product or service. So I run my own
Nice.
B2B copywriting business and I help a lot of small businesses and startups and some larger corporations sell things online. And so this book is the technical skills of content marketing, social, all of those components, but then also kind of like it's a little bit business memoiry because it's about like my emotional journey and things that I
Mm,
tried. Like I try to be pretty honest with when I've failed because I think I rather listen to someone who has like gone through similar things than listen to someone who like is a guru and like hasn't been honest about those things. And because of the internet, there is a much larger opportunity for people to create small businesses because they can connect with their specific niche online. So that could
mm,
be selling sweaters made of cat hair, right? It could be like unicorn poop bath bombs, like whatever it is, like there is a like I follow a guy who he makes ashtrays that just are like acrylic, clear acrylic with like little baby dolls in them. And I'm like, I'm not sure I'm ready to buy this, but this is fabulous. Like I'm so happy that someone is just making like little baby ashtrays. But there is an opportunity thanks to the internet to like really connect with your niche, which means that there is a more profitable market to make unique things than there was in the past, right? In the past, like you had to either go into your neighborhood and like be at like a farmer's market being like, would you like my like acrylic baby ashtray? Or like pay for a huge ad on TV. But now you can have, I found him through TikTok. You can make TikToks being like, why did I make this? I don't know, but I just needed little plastic babies in an acrylic ashtray. And like people will be like, oh my God, I need that too. So I think the internet has like created opportunities in the market. And I want to make the second book is about like helping people find that specific spot where they can pay their bills. I'm not trying to make Jeff Bezos's. This is not a book for Jeff Bezos. This is a book for someone who's like, you know what? I don't want to work my corporate job anymore. What is the thing that I can do that I actually love doing and I can pay my bills and be and live a good lifestyle? And it can be, like I said, it can be extremely unprofitable. There was research done, I'm blanking on the person, but that a lot of he interviewed a ton of millionaires and he found that the millionaires actually they created their own businesses after leaving their corporate jobs mid-career. So it can
mm.
be extremely profitable. And I could see that and understand why that would happen because they've established skills in a work environment and then they've taken those skills and created something unique in their own unique business. So to me, that, is again going back to what's your unique selling position proposition? What's the unique thing that you can provide to the market? There's a lot more opportunity for that.
Hmm. So you mentioned failing. Are you comfortable sharing some of the
Oh yeah.
examples?
Yeah, so and in my memoir I have kind of some of these stories. I was renting out Airbnbs at one point, so I would work with a local Chinese landlord and rent an apartment, and then I would have a designer come in and like design the apartment, and then I would rent it out to people who were traveling on Airbnb. It was like one of the worst jobs I've ever had in my life because everyone had different opinions of like what an Airbnb should provide. And this was earlier on in Airbnb.
Okay.
I didn't have like a like you have to clean it and pay for a cleaning fee. No, I was like you don't have to clean it. I have a cleaning like you paid a cleaning fee, they clean it. But it was like just like some people were like, "Oh, you need to provide slippers." One person was like, "Hey, I can't get on Facebook. The internet's not working." And I'm like, "You're in China. Like
China, it's banned. Yeah.
I can't help you with that." I can't put in a good word with like the Chinese government. Like, yo, can you make an exception? Like, I can't do that. And it was like around the clock. So like for me, I was like, oh, Airbnb is great because I love travel. it's financial freedom. I can work when I want. I can go and do stand up at night. I don't have to worry about anything. No. Around the clock, it'd be like, hey, the power went out on this block. Like, I have no power in my house. And then I have to figure out, like, why don't they have power? Is it the house? Is it, in that case, it was that the entire block had power out. And they were like
Yeah.
very upset at me. I'm like, the hospital on the corner also doesn't have power. So I want to help you, but this is out of my control. So there were a lot of
Yeah.
situations like that. And also like even at, and I opened too many at once. So I had like a bunch that were really profitable in the summer, but I opened them during the peak season. So then during the slow season, I didn't lose money, but I wasn't like I was like kind of breaking even. Like some lost money and some gained money, so it was like a weird situation. But I give that as an example where like, okay, maybe I should have opened a little bit slower and a lot more people came into the market. And when we talk about unique selling proposition, like a unique thing that I offered was that I had like a whole huge guide of like all my favorite restaurants, bars, whatever, since I lived there, so that anyone who came could like find exactly what they were looking for. But that wasn't enough because a ton of other people in the market were also doing Airbnbs. And so I didn't have a unique thing. Like I had a designer helping me make them look beautiful, but I wasn't like a designer myself. And so I think
Mm.
that that also is like another example of like I wasn't in a unique situation where I was better at doing this job than other people. And across the US, if you look at Airbnb numbers right now, there are a lot of issues where people came in when, there was more opportunity, and right now there's oversupply. So while there's a
Yeah.
increase in demand as more people are traveling, there are too many Airbnbs out there. And so a lot of people are actually like not, they're underwater. They're not making money right now because of that. And then also there's things like I was at an Airbnb and I was up at 6 a.m. to get all the sheets cleaned before we had to check out at 10. They were like, they need to be dried by the time you
Oh,
leave.
wow.
I'm like, washing and drying, that's like at least 2 hours. And I'm like, they're like,
Yeah.
the ice machine needs to be set. Like, I was literally up at 6 a.m. cleaning, and I'm like, I'm paying you like $250 to clean this place, and I'm up at 6 a.m. cleaning it. Like, I understand why, like, people are also frustrated. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just, it's like, I understand why people renting on Airbnb are frustrated, and I understand why people who are finding places on Airbnb are frustrated. So, anyway, like, that's just one example of
Oh,
like
wow.
failure.
That was, yes, that's it. And you mentioned that in the book, right?
Yeah, I talk about it. Yeah. I have a chapter
Oh,
on
wow.
being in Shanghai, and finding out that Trump was going to be president. And while at like the brunch where it's kind of like, the votes are rolling in, having a toilet break in one of my apartments and having to like clean up a tsunami of poo. Being like, wow, our country is going down the drain and like this is traumatizing. Both happening at the same time and being like, great, like I can't get this out of my head. And like also what does this
That's
mean
funny.
for my people in my country? So
So I want to ask you actually about the title. This is like a genius title, Word to Nest. Did you come up with it, or was it like a publisher agent? I really love.
I think in my writing class, that's where we kind of came up with it. It's a play on my last name, Van Nest.
Yeah, yeah.
And I really think the theme of the book, I mean, I'd say when I was pitching the book in my proposal, another like criticism was like, hey, it doesn't have enough of like an overarching arc. It's more like
Okay.
essays. And so I would advise everyone to have a very clear overarching arc. I would not use the end book as an example of that. I made the arc stronger, but it is still like, it is, a travelogue with like, it takes place in different countries. So, but I think the book's really about searching for belonging. And so like it's about like where is the final place that you want to nest. And like again, that's never final, but like where is the place that really feels good to you? And so for me, like traveling, I learned about like there's a chapter on having HPV and like learning about healthcare when I was in China and being like, okay, this was very traumatizing. You know, what does your government do for you? There's a chapter on seeing the different Occupy Wall Street sites all over Europe, and then going to Utrecht in the Netherlands and seeing that the government had actually provided tents. So there's people
Mm,
sleeping in tents protesting their government, and the government gave them military tents to sleep in so that they could stay warm in the winter. And it's like, okay, like what do you expect from your government? Because all the other countries
mm,
I went to, the Occupy Wall Street movement was like their own people providing their own tents. And so I was like, wow, like this government is showing that even if you don't like the government in power, like they're helping you. And that was like a
mm,
very different thing to see. And so I think belonging is like, what are those little pieces? And like when we talk about like feminism stuff like that, like LA is very progressive. So like I think a lot of the values that are important to me, I can experience here more so than say the hometown that I grew up in.
mm, mm.
Which is why like I choose to live here. Part of the reason I choose to live here.
Hmm. So before we conclude, what kind of advice would you give to writers who don't want to be in a corporate job or to work in a, let's say, one newspaper or one publication, and they just want to do like you and me do, like, we run our own writing businesses, or marketing business? What would you tell them?
Number one, do not just quit your job. Don't do
Okay.
that. I think like starting your own business and creating your own like revenue stream is going to take a couple years. I don't care what anyone says on TikTok where they're like, "Oh, I bought like a ATM machine and now I'm a millionaire." Like I'm not going to buy that. That if that is true, which I'm questioning, that's like a unicorn. That's not a normal thing. It usually takes a couple years for you to really build your business. And so I would keep your current income while you're doing that, but think about where you put your energy. And my view on like building a new business is kind of like learning a new skill. You have to think about the smartest way to learn the skill, but it also takes time to learn the skill. So with a business, you have to, if you make smarter decisions, you will grow faster. But also, if you're a writer, becoming better at writing will help you grow faster. So, like, if you're doing freelance, I think how I kind of like grew my business is like when I didn't have a portfolio, I worked for free, which I don't always advise people to do that. I don't think you should be working for free long term, and I get really frustrated that there is a market for free work. Like that just angers me, but I just as an example, I started doing things for free. And then once I had a portfolio, I charged a higher price, not a big price, a low price, but I could be like, hey, I have examples of my work. And then once I had enough clients there that I could support myself, to the next person who wanted to work with me, I offered them a higher price because now I'm a more experienced writer and I have way more portfolio. And so I slowly raised my prices that way and until the point that I could afford to do it on my own. So I would never advise people to quit their job uh, cold turkey because you need to factor in that this stuff takes time. And I would advise that, keep your paycheck so you have that stability. But do you need to work to complete the tasks that are assigned to you? Do you need to work 9 to 5?
Mm,
Tim Ferriss talks a lot about in one of his books, but for me, I was working at a job and I realized I can do the work that they want me to do in like 2 hours a day. Like if let's say
yeah.
like the emails and the management and the writing, I can finish it. I mean, I work really fast, but working really fast comes with experience, right? And so I didn't have to spend 9 to 5 completing my work. And I wasn't an underperformer. I was just like, what are the actual things that matter? And like the other stuff I'm not going to do. So I think really about like cherishing your time and thinking about how you spend your time is essential. But I don't like when people are like, you have to also make the emotional commitment that like, I want to leave my job. I'm not going to prioritize my job every day.
Mm, mm,
Because if you prioritize your job every day, you're going to be like, I'm tired. I can't do this other thing. But if
Yeah.
you're like, I'm
Yeah.
going to do this other thing, let's say 2 hours a day in the morning, or I'm going to do 1 hour before work, 1 hour after work, whatever works for you, you are becoming better at it and building the skill. Excuse me, that's saying the same thing twice. Becoming better at it and like progressing.
Mm.
And so that's like really, and for me, like with my books, I've been in an accountability group for 3 years now, and I've written, I've sold two books and written a book and written two books during that period, and that's just because like I signed on every day and wrote.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which again is extremely difficult being like, oh, like I have responsibilities and a job and I'm prioritizing this other thing that's kind of a dream of mine. But if you want that dream to be real, you have to put time to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how do people find you, get in touch with you, and find your book?
Yeah, so best is on social, Twitter, TikTok, or Instagram at Kristen Van Nest, just my name. And if anyone has any questions or anything, like feel free to DM me. I will try to respond to questions, but if they're like really long or complicated, like I might not be able to get to it. But if it's like a quick question, like I want to help other people and other writers tell their stories. Memoir is very hard to sell, but it happens. I don't know how it happened to me, but it happened, and I would love to help other people really like get out their unique stories. This is how we make the world a better place, and build empathy. So if any writers have any questions, they can absolutely reach out to me, and follow me on social for both updates on my book and sometimes I post some writing advice. You also post amazing writing advice all the time. And I'm like, yes, like I learned from you. And I'm like, oh, that's so smart. So they should follow you too for writing advice.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. So, thank you so much for joining us today, Kristen. And for anyone who is listening or watching, thank you for spending an hour with us. And don't forget to check out Kristen's book, Where to Nest, which is coming out in April, correct?
Yeah.
And thank you for staying with us today. And until we meet again.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Read and Write with Natasha. I'm your host, Natasha Tynes. If today's episode inspired you in any way, please take the time to review the podcast. Remember to subscribe and share this podcast with fellow book lovers. Until next time, happy reading, happy writing.